Minister of Tourism, Heritage and Culture, and Minister responsible for women's equality.
Mr. Speaker, November 25th marked the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. December 6th was a National Day of Remembrance and Action to end violence against women in commemoration of the Montreal Massacre. I'm about to share the personal stories of violence that several New Brunswick women have been subjected to. These stories are graphic and disturbing to hear, but I feel it's important to acknowledge what has happened to them and indeed what happens to many women. Even in this moment, as I stand here in the safety of my workplace, there are women across our province who are being hit, ridiculed, or sexually violated. Possibly they are enduring all three right now. We're not aware of them all, but we want to be. What we have heard over the years are countless other stories that should continue to shake us to the core. Most heartbreaking are the stories of domestic and intimate partner homicide, like Dorothy Ann Archer Waycott of St. John, who was stabbed nearly 40 times by 6 different steak knives by the man she considered her high school sweetheart. She was 40 years old in 1992 when her life was taken in an obsessive, jealous rage. Her killer was sentenced to 20 years in prison. There's also the case of Alice Elizabeth Ledley, who lived with dementia. When at the age of 80, she was gagged and rolled up in a carpet inside her Rossay home by the man she had met at the tender age of 12. He later became her husband. He received a 2-year community sentence, not getting any jail time. That horrific murder happened in 2004. And in Sackville, in 2010, the body of 25-year-old Sabrina Patterson, the mother of 2 small children, who was found stuffed in a garbage bag in a wooded area near Shenstone. She had been brutally sexually assaulted and strangled to death by her ex-common-law partner. He is serving a life sentence. These are just a few of the traumatic cases that made the headlines because death occurred. Thousands of other women suffer from violence every day in silence. We must not tolerate violence against women any longer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Deputy de Caraquet.
Member for Caraquet. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So to react to that statement, this I have a text from the silent witness text. Simone Boudreau of Grand'Anse in New Brunswick was beaten to death by her common-law husband at her home between December 30th, 2006 and 30th of January 2007. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to life. The relation between that man and woman that had started in 2004 was hard and sometimes violent. There was a history and even a criminal record of violence, and he was on probation when the incident happened. And the friends of Mrs. Boudreau remember seeing her with black eyes and other injuries. They asked her to leave her common-law husband. She was somebody who was jovial and always smiling. She loved animals, walking, and music. She was a great mother to her 2 children. Simone was an auxiliary nurse for the Red Cross. We miss her, but she will always be in our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm rising today in response to the minister's statement, and I'm about to share one of the personal stories of violence from the New Brunswick Silent Witness Project. And I want to let listeners know, as a sort of trigger warning, that these stories are graphic and difficult to listen to. And in addition to these stories, you may have seen the red silhouettes with a golden shield on the chest that represent the women in these stories. It's important to bear witness to what happened to them as these women were silenced. And I'm going to share a story about Sabrina Patterson. I knew Sabrina. I went to school with her. We weren't in the same grade, but we went to school together for years. And I remember her strength and kindness, and one thing that stands out to me was her great sense of humor. Sabrina Patterson from Sackville, New Brunswick, went missing on October 29th, 2010. Her body was found 8 days later in a garbage bag in a wooded area near Shenstone. Sabrina had been brutally sexually assaulted and strangled to death. Her ex-common-law partner was found guilty of first-degree murder, sexual assault causing bodily harm, and sexual assault, and is serving an automatic life sentence with no chance of parole for 25 years. Sabrina, who was the mother of 2 children, had been in a troubled on-again, off-again relationship with her ex for many years and was moving on from the relationship. Sabrina was the chosen daughter of Dale and Carolyn Patterson, and as the only daughter in a family of 5 children, she brought a ray of sunshine to the family. Her 4 brothers loved her as they all grew together. She always had a tender heart for the downtrodden and abused members of society, as the SPCA learned, as she took in as many of their abused animals as she could. She nursed them back to health and happiness. Unfortunately, she thought she could do the same with humans, and it cost her her life. Always in our hearts.
The member for Miramichi in the gallery.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the minister for bringing this forward. You know, there's all kinds of stories, and I'm sure everyone's been touched by, you know, what happens behind closed doors, and we never really know what somebody suffers. And us too, and our family, we just passed an anniversary of my cousin Rhonda, who's on the silent witness also, and her mom were both brutally murdered in their home in 1980. So, you know, this touches close to our heart. So I want to, you know, share my story and thank you for bringing this forward. And the more that we can get out there and bring this to light, then the more we can help the people that are silent and that we don't know about. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Recognize the government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to seek unanimous consent of the House to rise for a moment, every member to rise and just stand silently in solidarity against violence against women. If we could take that moment, Mr. Speaker.
Agreement? Thank you. Be seated.